Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the emotion roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio, and this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Delighted to be back here with you. I want to say thank you to callers in the past. I had this delightful call with a father who spoke to me last time I was on the air, and we were chatting about some things, and if you want to call back and finish up the phone call, that'd be great. But I did put a post up on the WPKN community Facebook page because I do video stream my calls and my show. And one of the things that I do is I tend to have some really, really good calls where I'm helpful to people. If you've never listened to the show before, the show is about helping you, each of you as members of the WPKN community, with any challenges that you're facing that might be somewhat difficult for you to resolve. I find when smart people are stuck, when good critical thinkers are unable to find a resolution to a problem they're having, it's almost always because something emotional is happening inside them, or with somebody else that they're dealing with who they're concerned about that person's emotions. And when you are worried about emotions, we don't tend to have a lot of learning associated with that other than what we might have experienced over our lifetimes through trial and error. More and more these days, people are learning about emotional intelligence and ways to work with their emotions, to manage their own emotions more effectively, and also to manage their emotional relationships with others more effectively. And actually, that's what I'm doing in this show. And so those of you that are regular listeners, if you've got something that you want to call about, I'm all set to take your calls. It's 203-336-9756. And you know what the routine is here is if you can tell me a little bit about your situation. I'm on the air from 12 to 1, so I can't relive everybody's entire history with them. But if you got something that's concerning you that you can describe to me in a few minutes. And then what I try to do is I walk you through emotionally how you're dealing with it. And what I can help with, and what those of you who are regular listeners already know, is what I do is I ask you, how are you feeling about it right now? How are you feeling right now? And is there somebody else who's key to what you're trying to get done? And how do you think he or she or they are feeling? And once we establish what you believe people are feeling, I then ask a really critical question, which is part of this concept of an emotion roadmap and taking the wheel and controlling how you feel. This whole idea of what is ideal to feel in your situation. Now, that sounds like a simple question to ask, and most people, if you don't think much about it, say, oh, I guess I want to feel happy about everything. But happiness is good for certain situations, but not for all situations. Sometimes you've got a conflict that is really difficult to manage, and it's an ongoing relationship issue that's going to take some time, and maybe you just want to just shoot for calm and reasonable. Happiness may be down the road a piece in terms of fixing it if there's a problem that needs to be fixed. But happiness isn't always the goal. Happiness is a goal for lots of things, but sometimes we want to know how to grieve because we've lost somebody, but we're struggling with grief. We want to know what to do with our anger because our anger is about an injustice, and we're not going to feel happy until that injustice is corrected. So the idea of emotions targeted to specific needs, to specific situations, that you are facing, knowing what the right emotion is for that situation, that's something I can help with. And I can also help you then understand emotions, which is how emotions work, so we can plan together how to address your situation by helping you to change the emotions that might be involved with what's going on. That's part of it. I mean, that's a big part of it. So the whole idea of trying to manage emotions successfully is this concept of learning about emotional abilities, asking yourself a set of questions that have to do with, what am I feeling? Can you identify what you're feeling? What are the people who are involved with your feeling that are key to what you're trying to get done? What would be ideal for you and for them to feel? How do you get from what you are what it is that you're exactly feeling right now about the situation, what you'd like to feel, what you think would be ideal to feel for you and for them. And we plan for that by understanding how emotions work, and then thinking about the managing part, which is about managing your own emotions. How do you manage emotionally to get, for instance, if you're anxious, to calm and confident? How do you do that? And sometimes I'll ask you to think about, have you ever been anxious before and wanted to be calm and confident, and you figured it out? Even when you thought you might not be able to. You felt so anxious you didn't think there was any chance you'd figure it out, but you did. And even though the circumstances might be completely different, the feelings were similar to what you're experiencing now. Sometimes we can draw on that for resources for helping you plan what to do in your current situation. So this show is all about helping you take the wheel and control how you feel in a way that's advantageous to you accomplishing what you need to get done, what you want to get done, what you have to get done, what you may not want to deal with, but you do need to deal with. How do you manage emotionally to move forward on that? I'd like to use my own advice today and tomorrow, because when I get home, I've got taxes still to do, and I've got to manage my own emotions around trying to get that done. I imagine some of you in that similar place. So in any case, part of what you want to do is understand that there is a way to be more effective in managing emotions, and that's what the show's about. So one of my callers I started to tell you was a dad who called me a while back, almost just last month actually, and he was telling me that, over the 13 years I've been on the air, he's listened to a lot of what I've talked about around emotional intelligence, and he tried to bring those things into his household and to raise his child that way. And when we were talking about it last time, he also said that my son's in a really good place in terms of emotionally being aware, much more aware than I ever was or he ever was, in the sense of what he's learned over the years that he's taken into his home from listening to the show, but that he's struggling right now with, some of the things that have happened to all kids who, are around his age, 19, 20 years old, who have missed their senior years because of COVID. They had to be remote. They didn't get to go to their dances, their proms, their parties, their goodbyes. They didn't get a lot of what most of us in life did get a chance to experience when we finished off high school, for instance. And in his first year of college, a lot of it was just remote learning, and so no connections to people, and suffering as a result of that. And I know so many families that are having troubles with their children, their adolescents, their teenagers, and some of their young adults who have really struggled with this. And not just young adults. Lots of us are having trouble reconnecting or just missing relationships that we're struggling with COVID to try and manage. Now, COVID has been one of those diseases that a lot of us have struggled with, and some still have never gotten it. Others, many have, and some have had ongoing problems as a result of it. Others seem to have almost no symptoms at all. So it's really a mixed bag for a lot of people, but it was a very frightening experience and still is for lots of us. Having said that, I'll report to myself that I had recent bout of COVID, and my wife and I just dealt with it for the first time. We've been very careful for a lot of years and tried very hard to avoid getting it, but it still managed to make it into our home. I will have a shout out to the folks in Pfizer that created Paxlovid, because it's not easily available, I guess, but my wife and I, because of our age, and also we were lucky enough to be in a place where there was an available supply, that Paxlovid really was helpful. It's Pfizer's therapeutic for dealing with COVID, and we had some tough symptoms for the first couple of days, and once we started that drug, it was like, I don't want to say a miracle drug, but it was pretty amazing how much better we felt pretty quickly. So all of that being said is that we are dealing in scary times, not just with COVID, but with the polarization in our country, with the what's going on in Ukraine, and with the terrible, if you're watching any of the pictures or videos of what's happening over there, extreme sadness. And also, each of us in our own lives are dealing with the things that we're facing, whether it's high cost of food in the supermarkets, $100 to fill up your gas tank, so many things that are a bit of a struggle for so many right now. These are tough times, and particularly tough times to manage emotionally how you're feeling. So how do you build your confidence going forward? How do you maintain a confident outlook that life's going to be better, and no matter what life brings, you're going to adapt. You're going to be agile and be able to deal with it. How are you going to do that? I've gotten some requests in recent times to speak about the topic of, there's a big push now for diversity, equity, social justice, inclusion, accessibility. Those are things that probably we should have been talking about forever. And they're important to embrace and to make changes happen where change needs to happen. And at the same time, I'm thinking about and talking about and speaking to groups about this, I also realize that we don't want to make enemies of each other. And some of that is happening now when we focus on like some of the things that are being said about people of one color or one race or another are hard to hear, and are things that push people away from being part of this joint effort to make all of us, every one of us, no matter who we are, what we look like, what our gender is, what our religion is, what our color is, what our abilities are, to make all of us feel like we belong, to feel like we're all included. And so I'm working in those areas. And also for a number of years, some of you know, I've been working on the political side, trying to find ways to encourage more bipartisanship, more respectable discourse, civil discourse, so that when we have differences of opinion, that we can listen to one another and appreciate that while we don't see it the same way, we can still respect and value each other's opinions and beliefs and thoughts and so forth. There's a lot of things that I tried to do around the topic of emotional intelligence and this emotion roadmap about creating the kind of experience that we really want for each other. I'm going to take 1 second here and just take a quick break. I'll be back in a moment. Sorry for the short break. I just needed to close the door. There's a lot of activity in the studio, so I wanted to make sure that I could hear when anybody does call. And I'm hoping you call in. I'd like to talk with you. If you've got something going on in your life, it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be big picture, something that's saving the planet. It can just be something about you and your child, like we talked to the dad about his son, trying to be able to be helpful around giving his son some advice about how to move forward from being stuck with all the things that have happened to him with COVID, and changing everybody's life around going to school, going to college, going to high school, finishing your year, and so forth. So if you'd like to call in, the number is 203-336-9756, 203-336-9756. I always like to come prepared to talk about other things, if I've got something on my mind that I'd like to share that I think are kind of interesting and relate to emotional experiences. And one of those things this year, again, I talk about these things if I don't get callers. It's always better if I have a call, just simply because it's so interesting to hear what you're experiencing. And it's really, to me, an amazing gift if I can be helpful to you. I want to be helpful to people in part because I've learned some skills that can be helpful to others, but I also want all of you who are listening to be able to understand how to take this emotional intelligence science and the emotion roadmap tool and make it part of your life and make it part of who you are and help you in your world deal with the people you care about or need to care about. Sometimes we have to deal with people we don't like particularly, but they're in our life somehow. They can be relatives, they can be workmates, they can be bosses, they can be people who work alongside us or for us. So there's lots of times we deal with people that maybe we're not really wanting to be around, but we need to be around, and we need to work with them and understand them and so forth. And again, to the extent that you can make everybody feel included and they feel like they belong and they're part of the same team you're on, even when you disagree, if we find ways to value diversity in the thought, in beliefs, in attitudes, the world's a better place, at least in my opinion, and I think most people would agree with me. So the number is 203-336-9756. I'll give you a moment to call if you'd like. In case you want to hear the short interview with the father who called me, and it was such a nice call, and I so appreciate it. I did put it on YouTube. If you go to Emotion Roadmap, it's the most recent YouTube that I published under that channel name. So just go to YouTube, type in Emotion Roadmap, and you should see it. It's only 7 minutes long, and it really was quite delightful. That's why I shared it. So again, the number is 203-336-9756. So one of the things I'd like to talk about is in this state of Connecticut, we have been privileged to have an outstanding basketball program at the University of Connecticut. And for a number of years, it felt like there was a team that couldn't lose. But before I tell you that story, I'm going to take this phone call. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Chuck, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I appreciate your show every time I have a chance to hear it. And I thought I sympathize with your dead air, so calling this. Not, so I figured I'd call in, and I think you're on a great topic today. And everybody has their story, and I've got mine. And your show and your and among other people have helped me a lot to get through the last 3 or 4 years. I think that I remember when we talk about emotional intelligence, I tend to Google things and look things up, and I really found just being introduced to that concept, which is not new, but it is a topic, a studied topic, and I found it to be really useful to understand how to apply those principles in managing, all the stress and issues. And boy, I tell you, it just. I feel like, this is like Gone with the Wind movie or something. It's just that there's no intermission except,
That's funny that you say that. It keeps going and going and going, doesn't it? It's not getting easier. The world is just changing really fast, and a lot of strange things happening in our world these days that I just wouldn't have thought would be possible. Some of them good things like technology. I mean, think about carrying the world's knowledge in your pocket with a smartphone. I mean, those are some incredible things. But also, you see what's happening in Ukraine and places like that you just wonder, how does that still happen? How do we still? How is it possible we haven't moved past doing things like that to each other?
Well, I think we will. I mean, I think. Without getting deep into politics, we Americans we're used to 5-year wars with 10 years in between. That's what we've been growing up with. And I think places like Russia and elsewhere, there's 100 years war really was a thing, and it's a different pace and a different thing that we have to kind of play on their terms, or understand their terms. But
the more we can understand each other and each other's needs and each other's wants, and try as best we can to meet them without, just doing things that are ethically sound, I think the world would be better the more we were able to be empathic with one another.
I think it's going to be tough to be a Russian now. I think it's going to be hard for those who are Russian who will be, treated like maybe Japanese or Germans were. And I don't look forward to that unfortunate reaction, because it's going to happen, and I'm kind of waiting for that to become a thing, and have to figure out a way to negotiate.
I think you're probably right about that, and hopefully we understand that the people that are in a country are not necessarily the people that lead the country, and they don't all have the same opinion. So hopefully we're better than that. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I also wanted to share, and I don't need to share my story because everybody has one, but I went through, my wife and I and son went through a terrible situation. Our daughter had an absolutely staggeringly horrible accident just before COVID, and was trapped, and we were with her, and she became trapped in hospital and eventually passed away.
Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that.
And yeah, well, me too. But the thing that came out of that this just, within the last year, one of the things that came out of that was, in this accident, was she was a victim, obviously, but everybody that was with her and in her group, she was sailing on a ship at the time, and everything that on her crew were victims. They were really, really badly emotionally scarred. And we all became a big family very quickly, people I didn't even know. And that was a huge coping mechanism to adapt to, and, choose to not just bury yourself in your own issues, but kind of, take and give at the same time.
Interesting.
And I found that, it's given me the strength now, a year later, to stand up let's say a training and safety program, which is taking root and becoming a really influential thing in the industry. And that wouldn't have happened if it weren't, if I was just completely buried by, at the same time that happened, a neighbor had, unfortunately, her husband was killed by let's call it an impaired driver. And the two situations couldn't be more opposite as much as they were the same, because there's a family that's still scarred with almost hatred of the other person, and the other person that was the defendant.
Right.
And I would never want to have that on top of my loss, is to have hatred on top of my loss.
Interesting. Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Yeah. I can think of a situation, not in my immediate family, but in my wife's, one of our cousins got hit by a driver who was impaired, and her life changed. It was never the same, and it was never
the same
good. Yeah.
Bad way.
Yeah. Right.
Well, look, I don't want to babble on. I just I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your show, and I've been a PKN listener, honest to God, for 40 years.
That's impressive.
I started when I was, a young kid going into college. I used to be able to pick up the station where I went to school, and now I stream you where I live. I live up in Maine,
oh, okay.
So I'm able to stream you. So.
Well, that's
keep
great.
going. Keep doing it.
Well, Steve, let me just say, one of the things that you said that I don't want to lose sight of that's really important is this whole idea. They actually call this talk time on 12 to 1 at WPKN a community strip. And your thought and what you shared about the fact that something positive came out of the tragedy that you spoke about because of community, that a community that wasn't there but got formed. I think that's a really important message, and it is one of the things that helps us to cope and helps us to come up with a different scenario. Even with the couple that you mentioned that lost, that somebody got killed with a driver. I think if you can find others who somehow have gotten past the hate, because I think hate holds us back. I think the hate it cripples us more than it hurts the person that we're mad at. So I think that some of the things that you just said about community, I think are really an important message, and I want to thank you for sharing that. I'd like to ask you one other thing, though. Actually, I don't know if you're on the PKN mailing list, but there was just a survey that went out that asked people to rate what shows they listen to and what they like about PKN. So if you happen to see that, or you go to the website, say something nice about the show. That'd be great. I really appreciate your listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of stuff, but I'll keep an eye out for that if it's a mail or email or something, because I'm on your lists, plural.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I just got it the other day, so maybe it's in there someplace. But anyway, listen, Steve, thanks a lot for the call. I really appreciate it. And again, I think the feeling that you're able to share about community is one of those things that the tagline for the show is "Take the line and I take the wheel and control how you feel. And that's sort of what happened for you, it sounds like.
In fact, now that you mention it, I think it was literally that tagline that I've kind of mantraed for a bit, to at least that concept. And that's really what made me get going. So I appreciate it, Chuck. Thanks for a great show.
Thanks a lot, Steve. You take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Well, thank you. So anyway, if you've got something else that you'd like to share, I've got another 40 minutes or so. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Well, one of the things I always started to talk about was this idea of basketball. I realize not everybody's a sports fan. I grew up in the Massachusetts area, and sports were very much a big part of my life. And it was very important to me to cheer for the Celtics, who were amazing when I was a kid growing up, and the Red Sox, who never quite won, but they were always fun to cheer for. And then they became remarkable after the 2004 win of the World Series, which I got to go to one of those games, and that was one of the most meaningful sports spectator moments in my life. But also then, when I got over to Connecticut and I've lived in Connecticut a long time now. There were no national, no professional sports teams. The Whalers were here for a while. I like hockey. I like the Bruins, and I like the Whalers, but I didn't feel quite the same way about them as I did about the Patriots, the Red Sox, and the Celtics, and so forth. But I became really engaged with the UConn women, and not just because they played basketball, but because of the winning tradition. The ability for Gino Auriemma, the coach, to get the best out of players, to really maximize people's potential. And then Jim Calhoun, again, somebody from Massachusetts. Jim was also amazing as a coach and won several championships. So UConn became known as the college capital of basketball for a while. They were that good. And then all of a sudden, around 2015, I think it was the last time. That was the first year that Gino's team didn't make it. Well, I think maybe they did get to the championship and lost to the Mississippi. But for a lot of years now, they haven't been back to the finals. And this year they went. And this year they played a South Carolina team that just dominated everybody at the end. They were fantastic. They were the better team. But I just wanted to say congratulations to the UConn women for a tremendous season, for fighting through all kinds of adversity, for dealing with injuries, COVID, all the stuff that just made it really hard to have any kind of consistency. And yet they played so well up until the last game. The last game was tough to watch. They really got beat pretty good. The other team was better. But they won against Stanford. And I thought Stanford was better too. And yet they played so great. They played a classic game against North Carolina State, double overtimes, and the kids won. And I just want to recognize that sometimes you're a winner even when the final outcome doesn't go your way. So sometimes it doesn't mean when you didn't win that you're a loser. And that's the point I wanted to make about the story. Winning and losing sound like they're pretty black and white. And I want to make the point that sometimes when we don't win necessarily, we haven't really lost. And that's really important for people to understand, because some people just, I didn't get that job, but what did come your way? What door did open when another one closed? So many times I found people that, got laid off, had a bad experience someplace, and yet the outcome was a learning that they took forward with them. It made them better, and they ended up in a better spot in a better way. So I just want to encourage all of us to think about the idea that, hey, we don't lose. We don't ever fail. We don't really fail until we give up trying. So if we got something that's really important to us that we really want to make happen in our lives, for ourselves, for somebody we care about, for our companies, for our teams, for our clubs, for our neighborhoods, for our church groups, synagogues, mosques, whatever it is that we might want to help and make better, don't quit on it. Just keep believing and keep doing what you're capable of doing. Because again, the fact that you might not have won this battle doesn't mean you lose the war. The fact that you may have not won a playoff game doesn't mean that your season was a loss. So that's the story I wanted to share this morning. I also have something else I'd like to talk about, but I'd like to give you a chance to call 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And while I've got a minute, I'll just mention you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. If you like this show, this is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. Go to the WPKN website, look for the survey. Let people know. You know, it's one of those things that's funny. Sometimes I'm talking into the microphone here. I'm sitting in a studio. It's a great studio, by the way, since we've moved. It's a beautiful place. I joked about we went from where we were for a lot of years, and it felt like we went from we left the Flintstones set to the Jet set. You know, it's just really funny to see the difference in the beauty that's really in the studio. It's a lovely place down by the Bijou in downtown Bridgeport. And maybe you can come visit sometime. But anyway, so you're listening to WPKN. You can listen to us, 89.5 FM. Probably that's where a lot of you are listening now. Or, as Steve was saying, he's streaming us up in Maine. You can listen all over the world at WPKN.org. I think if you have the TuneIn app on your smartphones, you can listen that way as well. And you can listen on podcasts, too. Some of the shows that I've done, as I mentioned, I'll put on YouTube under Emotion Roadmap. I'll put on what's called the Public Radio Exchange, PRX, Public Radio Exchange. You can look that up on the internet, and I've got a bunch of shows that I've done over the years there that a lot of those are interviews, but some are just things where I felt like I had a story that I shared that I thought was a good story, and I wanted people to know about it, so it's up there too, and you can find those. Lots of things about leadership, a lot about relationships, a lot about marriage, about family, about work life, about motivating people, about engaging workers. So I've tried to talk about topics where emotions play a key role. I mean, we always are feeling something. We're always feeling something emotionally. So anyway, so you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener supporter, which means we count on your support. Community, which means you're part of our community. And part of why I'm on the air is I'd like to be able to help you. And sometimes we have people calling in who are helping each other. They listen to a caller and they want to call in and say, hey, I've got an idea for the last caller, something that I experienced that helped me, and perhaps that would help them as well. So again, I'll give you the number 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Well, while I'm waiting for anybody else to call, I just want to talk a little bit about something that I thought was really interesting. So I think I've mentioned on the air several times that I don't read a lot of magazines these days, but I happen to like Harvard Business Review. I think it's a fantastic magazine. I don't know if you ever have the opportunity, maybe in the library, maybe to go look at it there. I think a lot of libraries carry it, but they actually talked about this thing about how to help people deal with real deep conflict, polarization. And one of the things that they talked about is things I've talked about on the air myself recently, which is they talk about having a strategy where they have what they call people who are, for whatever reason, have differences of opinion. In our country, there's a group called Braver Angels that says there are reds and there are blues. And as you might imagine, reds are more conservative, blues are more liberal or progressive. And they have technology where they come in and they help people to understand each other's perspectives. They don't change anyone's minds necessarily, although that can happen. But that's not the goal. The goal is just to develop a respectful understanding of what another person feels, who may be part of your family, by the way. Unfortunately, some of the difficulties we've had in recent times in terms of being really polarized isn't just with people in a different state or in a different group or in a different company or in a different team. It's sometimes with the people we love that we're either married to or partners with, or, their sons and daughters or our parents or sisters and brothers. It's just, we don't always agree on things. And sometimes we see the other person not understanding our point of view as, How can you be that stupid? How can you not understand why I'm right? How do you not see what I see? And, as soon as we're in that kind of mode, we stop listening. We've stopped listening to each other. So I think it's really important to have a perspective that, well, I think I'm right about certain things, and I'm a smart guy, and I've got some evidence I believe is real that I can support and tell you about what I believe. I'm not learning anything new if I'm just the one talking, telling you about what I think. I am possibly learning something new if I respect you and see you as another smart person who has different evidence, who believes something quite different than what I believe. And I want to listen to you, and I want to understand why you believe what you believe instead of just sell you my position. That's how it feels. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to sell my position. I've learned to be smarter than that. I really have, but not always. And I hope that you learn to be smarter than that too. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, though, is, by the way, I'll give you a chance to call again, 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll wait a minute. Okay. So let me tell you about one of the things that I was really impressed with in the Harvard Business Review I read the other day. Now, this show is called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. So here's a graphic that I copied, and, I've got it on my phone, so I'm looking at it right now. Actually, let me, and the graphic says, a roadmap for racial equity. A roadmap for racial equity. And by the way, one of the things that's really interesting is, what does the word equity really mean? It's not equality. It's not the same as equality. What is the word equity? And I encourage you to spend some time looking at it, because it may not be what you think it means. And it may not be what I think it means. So I just try to understand what it means yourself. But what the article proposes to help people to make life more inclusive. And while it has to do in some ways with just race, it does talk more broadly about other groupings. So I think in our workplaces and in our groups, wherever we might belong to, we do have race as a consideration. And while I think civil rights have come a long ways, I also think we have a long ways to go. Now, some people think that it hasn't come a long ways and that we've really not done very much at all, or not nearly enough anyway. Other people think, yeah, actually we've done a lot and we've made great progress and we should acknowledge the progress. And yes, we do have more to do, but let's not negate all the hard work that people put forward before. And while those positions sound like they're a bit different, they're actually a lot different. And people get pretty upset if you're not in their camp on one side or the other of this. That's a little bit of what I wanted to talk a bit about. Because I think one of the things that struck me in recent times is that, I kind of grew up at a time when Martin Luther King's message really resonated about, judge me by my character, not the color of my skin, or something along those lines. And now there's a whole bunch of people that are people of color who want you to notice their color, want you to understand that color has an impact that if you're not a person of color, you can't possibly understand. Now, that's a different message than the one that Martin Luther King spoke about. And while the difference is important to some people to a really high degree, other people who don't recognize that or didn't grow up with that, who are new to that message, don't get it necessarily, at least not right away. This is what I've discovered in being part of conversations with people around these things. And yet, I don't think they're the enemy if what they believe is what Martin Luther King said, which is that, judge me by my character. Judge me by my character. Instead, they want others to believe that that's really important too, but I do think you need to notice my color, because my color has implications for what I've experienced growing up in this country that if you're not a person of color, you can never understand. So I think that people might want everyone to have the benefit of all the same opportunities and be in both of those camps and not really be adversaries. And yet sometimes they become adversaries. And I think that's such a shame, because I think everyone needs to understand that, hey, I get that if I'm not a person of color, I can't possibly experience what it feels like to walk into a place, be a person of color, and have attention that I never would get as a white person. I'll never have that experience. I get that. I get that if I'm driving in an all-white neighborhood and I'm a person of color, that I might be looked at differently by a police officer than if I'm person white and driving through that same neighborhood. I get that too. I get that there are differences, and I'll never appreciate or be able to feel those differences, but I can understand that you do. And I can understand why I'll never understand that, but I can still be empathetic in the sense that intellectually I can empathize with you. Emotionally, I'm not going to feel the same thing you're going to feel. And so, yeah, there's differences, but I'm not an adversary. I'm a fan. I want to make this better for everybody. And the thing is, I think that when you think about it this way, there is a roadmap, and that's what I wanted to share with you. I thought this was really neat. So the roadmap for racial equity is, first, problem awareness. They actually call it PRESS. P stands for problem awareness, and R is root cause analysis. What's the root cause of what we're experiencing? And then on the side for the P and R, for problem awareness and root cause analysis, they talk about that as a condition. Do I understand what the problem is and where it comes from? And my couple of sentences before I just introduced this model is trying to understand why people are in different spots on this. By the way, there's also a whole group of people that deny any of this is meaningful. Those people are adversaries, I guess. But hopefully most people are in the camp that, hey, we want life to be fair and equitable and reasonable and all of us, everyone, to have opportunities. And race, by the way, is only just one of the conditions out there. There's a whole big push now for accessibility, too, for people with different challenges, physical challenges, emotional challenges. There's a whole groups of people in hospitals that have physical disabilities, veterans that have been, maimed or hurt or have really had some physical and emotionally draining and tough experiences that led to PTSD and all kinds of other, physical concerns that they have to get through as a result of being a veteran. Anyway, so there's a lot of people that are looking for the same opportunities and having the same chances in life as all of us. So that's the condition. The concern is empathy. P is problem awareness. R is root cause analysis. E is empathy. Empathy is, do I care enough about the problem and the people it harms? And that's a really important question, isn't it? Because while I might be interested, that's not the same as being actively engaged in making it better. So is there a place, is there a way, is there some sense of community where all of us can work to make it better for all of us, for everyone, no matter what the distinction? Well, the concern is, hey, a lot of people are busy with their own stuff, and they don't really notice outside their own family's immediate needs, with good reason. I mean, a lot of us have been impacted very negatively with the whole COVID thing, right? We're concerned about Ukrainians, right? I mean, again, it's unbelievable to me what's happening over there, and to a lot of other people as well. But it isn't just Ukrainians. There's lots of places in the world, some of the Latin American countries, some of the Middle East countries, where some things are happening that are horrible, where human beings are treating other human beings really in a devastating way. How much can we care about? Well, I don't know, to you, to me, I think you have to make some decisions about where you put your energy, where you put your empathy. But you want to do something, at least I believe. I mean, if all of us are doing something to make the world a better place, finding some way, somehow, to devote some of our energy to doing more than just for ourselves and just for our immediate families, and doing something to reach out. For me, it's this radio show. It's one of the things, anyway, that I like to do, is try and help out by reaching out with this radio show, to help others, to try to help others understand how to take more responsibility and accountability for what they're feeling, and to help them to do something with the feelings they have that aren't helpful, whether they're their own or somebody else's. So there's the condition, the concern is empathy. How much do we care? And the correction is a strategy and sacrifice. Do we have a plan for our own efforts to make the world a better place somehow? And what are we willing to give up? I was listening on the way in. I heard that we're all, I don't know about you, but across the country, Americans are streaming unbelievable amounts of content, right? However we're seeing it, right? So we're all watching a lot of great shows, great entertainment, but could we take a little bit of time off of that, maybe, and do something else for somebody else? So I just I wanted to share this roadmap, this press as an idea for racial equality. Problem awareness is the P. R is root cause analysis. E is empathy. Do we care enough to do something about it? And if we do care enough, what's our strategy, which is the S, and another S is what are we willing to sacrifice? Because it does take some sacrifice on our part. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And now I'd like to open up the lines again to see if you'd like to call and talk with me about something going on for you. Or maybe how you're dealing with doing something charitable for others. I'd love to hear some of your stories. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Okay. Well, maybe there's nobody out there doing anything for anybody else, but I kind of doubt it. In fact, I think a lot of PKN listeners are typically very charitable people in many ways and probably do a lot for others. So I've got 10 minutes left in my show. So the number is 203-336-9756. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. What was your name?
My name is Frank, and
Frank.
I'm listening to WPKN in the car.
Okay.
And I like your words, man.
Thank you.
I agree. We should be more charitable. And I wanted to call. You were waiting for a call, so I wanted to let you know that somebody was listening out there.
Hey, I really appreciate that, Frank. And sometimes you don't know, you know.
No, you totally know. It's just that people are driving, and it's not a good idea to, a lot of people listen in the car, I think, for PKN. That's when I always listen to it.
Yeah, I do a lot of that myself whenever I'm around this area. I try to listen to. Do you anything you're doing yourself? Anything you can share?
Well, I just experienced a very charitable event in Meriden, Connecticut, and it was a coffee house musical benefit for the local soup kitchen.
Oh, that's lovely.
And a bunch of people came together and sang songs and talked about their experience with hunger and, the need to kind of be cool with your fellow human and all that stuff, and how maybe taking care of somebody's basic needs allows them to better take care of themselves. You know what I mean? And these are all important things,
That's great. Did you just go to it? Were you a part of the people that were patronizing it?
Well, I'm also a singer-songwriter, so I actually hosted the event. It's an old church concert series.
Hey,
but
it
benefited. Yeah, it was nice. It benefited the Meriden Soup Kitchen, and there's soup kitchens in just about every town, And now is the time, coming around spring, everybody's charitable, and during the holidays, soup kitchens are just fine, and homeless shelters are just fine with money during Thanksgiving or Christmas. But it's people forget about them when the weather gets nice, So maybe it's a good time to, if you're looking to do something, if you're listening and you're looking to do something charitable, you've been inspired by the words you've heard on the radio, maybe look to your local homeless shelter or local soup kitchen.
Hey, Frank, that's a great message. I really appreciate your you're calling in. Thank you for doing that, even though you're driving. And two is thank you for the work for what you're doing. I mean, that's a lovely thing that you hosted.
Well, buddy, thank you for the work that you're doing. It takes a village, as they say.
Yeah, it does. Thanks a lot for calling in. I appreciate you being part of the community.
Have a great day, buddy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, great. Anybody else got a story that they could quickly share? 203-336-9756. What a wonderful thing to be doing, right? Just to remember that even though it's not holiday time, there's a lot of people that are still in tough straits. we can help people with hunger. It's one of the things I think about sometimes too. It seems like the world produces enough food for everybody, and yet somehow we don't distribute it in ways that people get fed that are not able to, for whatever reasons, provide for themselves. So anyway, got another story? I'd love to hear it. 203-336-9756. Well, I'm getting closer to the end of my show, and so maybe I can just kind of revisit a few of the things that we talked about here. So some of the things that we chatted a bit about have to. Oh, we got another call. Great. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, this is Tess.
Hi, Tess. Could you turn your radio down? I think.
Yeah, I got it down. Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Tess.
I just really appreciate everything you're saying, especially working towards understanding racial unity. It's just we're having a really long, tough slog with that in our country, and so that touched me deeply. But I want to say, as a Polish American and a Ukrainian American, I'm really encouraging everyone to support any kind of relief effort to get medical supplies and life-sustaining supplies to Ukraine. The best way to do that is look up Ukrainian churches in your area. They're all running relief efforts, and they're boxing and shipping like crazy, and you can participate in even something you think is just a small contribution. Walk into the dollar store and grab $10, $20 worth of medical supplies, put them in a box, take them to a Ukrainian American church. They will get them over to Ukraine and help these people who are just being slaughtered and annihilated right before the world's eyes.
Tess, do you have family over there still?
I'm as primarily a Polish American. I have family in Poland. Yeah. Been in contact with them. I'm very proud to say that they took one spare apartment they have, and they now have 8 Ukrainian people living in one apartment. So they're doing what they can do in Poland with this massive refugee. There's really a refugee catastrophe they have over there. Yeah,
there's a family that we're friendly with that just took in it's a young family with 3 kids, and they just took in a Ukrainian family that managed to get to this country but had no place to go, and they took the mother and father, and they had 3 kids around the same age. They're all living in the same house right now trying to figure it out. But yeah, I think that whatever you might do, even if whatever you can afford, you can. I think your advice is to go to a Ukrainian church, and a lot of those churches are sending these things over and getting them to people over there.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's just, if you're not from the Slavic background or Ukrainian American background, you might feel disassociated on, well, how do I contribute? And the simplest thing, you can Google Ukrainian churches right in your area, in your state. Connecticut has a lot of them. New York has a huge Ukrainian American population. And I'm telling you, they're working like mad. So, and even as Ukrainians now, reports are they're trying to go back into Ukraine and perhaps repopulate and help clean up their war-torn towns. So they're going to need a lot of supplies. They basically have nothing over there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't watch those pictures and not feel extreme sadness and anger about what's happening. But I think it's important to at least know that it's happening, and anything that when you do something like what you're talking about, you just feel like you're making a little bit of a difference somehow, and that feels good. There's not much we can control,
like I say, a little drop of water in the pond, and you feel like you contributed. Thanks for using your platform and your voice to get these messages out to the world.
Thank you, and thanks for listening to the show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Okay, Tess. Take care. Bye now. Okay, well, that was great. So a couple of different ideas, right? Maybe do something locally for the people that are in your own hometown, like Frank talked about, which is doing something for a soup kitchen in Meriden in that particular case, or doing what Tess suggests, which is getting yourself over to a Ukrainian church and putting some things together that you think might be useful to people in need. Finding some ways to maybe help out with families that have come to this country. There's lots that we can do. even in small ways. I don't know that any of us are in a position, I mean, certainly some are, but most of us aren't in positions to affect world policy in a big way. But I think when we do a little kindnesses every day that we can, every week that we can, every chance that we can, the world's a better place for it. And so, as much as there's difficult times and challenges that we're facing, I think that the more we embrace the change and we adapt to it and we're agile enough to be helpful not only to our own immediate family and concerns, but to others as well, it just makes the world a bit nicer. And it gives us, at least for me, anytime I'm able to help anybody, it feels like, hey, that was a great opportunity. And I'm really thankful that I had the chance to help any of you. If any of you got anything inspirational from this, which it sounds like a few of you did, I'm glad I can be on the air, and I'm glad I have the chance to talk with you and that we got to do this today. I'm going to be back next week. The show is the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I'm Chuck Wolf, and I'm on my 13th year doing this show. And hopefully I've been helpful to anyone who's listening. And remember to think about how are you feeling, how you want to feel, and how others are feeling, and how you want them to feel, and what you can do about it. So that's the message I want to leave you with. I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month, and at noontime as part of our community strip. And that community strip is about all of you. It's about everyone that's listening. You're all part of our community. So I hope you got a couple of decent ideas for things going forward that might be helpful to you. And if you have a chance, look up that WPKN survey and write something nice about PKN. And if you happen to like my show, something nice about the show too. Thanks, everybody. I'll be in touch with you in another week. And I wish you all a very good week and look forward to talking to you next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.